Hey, good morning, church. So thankful to be able to spend a couple of moments here talking about Acts 26 with you. Paul finally gets to make his defense, and he's excited because he's speaking to a learned audience. Herod Agrippa would have been raised in traditional Judaism, which means he knows what the prophets wrote about the Christ and his resurrection. He had to die, and he had to be raised from the dead. Now, as Paul goes throughout his discourse, he's able to say everything he needs to say until he says this one line, that Jesus Christ was raised from the dead. And immediately, the Roman, Festus, interrupts him. You see, Romans, they don't believe that it's possible to be raised from the dead. They think it's crazy. And so Festus accused Paul of losing his mind. And Paul doesn't go back at Festus. Rather, what he says is he uses this as an opportunity to ask Herod a direct question. Because Agrippa has to decide, is he going to admit that he believes in the teachings of the scriptures, that the Christ will raise from the dead, and keep his Jewish following? Or does he say, no, I think this is a bunch of hogwash, I don't believe it, it's crazy, and keep his Roman favor? Now, Herod's response, he doesn't go either way. In fact, what Herod does is he finds the middle ground and he says, would you in such a short amount of time try to convince me to be a Christian, try to persuade me to be a Christian? Why this is so sad to me, because Herod, instead of just listening, he feels like he has to respond, but he doesn't want the truth. Now, I love Paul's response, and of all the things that we could focus on in this chapter, I think this is the most vital part, because Paul doesn't respond in anger or hostility. He doesn't chastise Herod. Rather, what he says is a beautiful statement. Rather, in a short amount of time or a long amount of time, I pray that all would come to know Jesus. What a wonderful sentiment. It's that type of heart that we have to have in this world today. We're going to face our skeptics. We're going to face those who know the truth but just will not yield to it. And we have to respond the same way Paul did. We have to trust that Luke 12:12 is true. For in that hour, do not worry what to say. The Holy Spirit will teach you what you have to say. We need to do as Paul did. We need to preach Christ and him crucified, and we need to share our story. It's the most effective way of preaching the gospel, and go out and live it. Paul didn't deserve to be there. They both agreed that he was innocent of the charges and that he would have been set free. So live the life that we're called to live. Preach the gospel we're called to preach. Share the story that you've been given, and love people regardless of how they respond. I pray you have a blessed day.